All right, I call the Human Relations and Aging Committee meeting to order. First thing we want to do is Representative Jasper, you'll lead us in prayer.
Day. It's a great opportunity to do the people's work in the great state of Georgia. Please look over us, put your hands around us, help us use your wisdom as we make the laws that affect so many people. Bless us, keep us safe, and keep us safe in this upcoming winter storm throughout our state. In your holy name, amen.
All right, members of the committee, we've got a couple of, I guess you'd call them housekeeping things that we need to do. There is a information sheet that's in your folder that we really need you to fill out and make sure that all that the information we have on you is correct. If you'll turn that in to Roma or Taylor, we'll get that taken care of. Also wanted to recognize one new member of the committee, Representative Dan Gazaway, who is now Secretary of the committee. So Representative Gazaway, if you'll tell us a little something about yourself.
Thank you, Chairman Benton. I live in the northeast corner of the state. I live in the country between Commerce and Cornelia. I represent a very diverse district. My business has been in land development and construction for the past 25 years, and I'm looking forward to being on this committee, and it looks like there's a lot of public input.
All right, thanks, sir. All right. That's all the housekeeping that we needed to do on this. We have one bill before the committee today. That bill is House Bill 220, being offered by Chairman Katie Dempsey. Chairman Dempsey, if you'll come forward, we'll listen to your explanation of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's HB 290, I believe. Is that right? And let's make sure we're operating off of the right document. LC 362373.
We got LC 362321S.
Does anyone have another copy of that in the room at all? Just to make a few quick copies. Mine has so many words marked up on it, I'm afraid y'all wouldn't be able to hardly read it.
Okay.
Sorry for my notes.
So we've got the wrong sub.
It does appear that you might. 362373 is the last.
Yeah. Chairman Dempsey, is this the sub that you're working on? Is that the sub that we made changes to in the ante room that day?
It includes the changes.
It includes the changes. All right. Did Roma go to make some copies? All right. We're gonna be at ease for just about 5 minutes and let those copies get made, and then we'll start up. I'd rather the committee have the right LC number in front of us before we start going over there. So if we'll just take about 5 minutes and then we'll start back up. We're going to go ahead and listen to the chairman's explanation of this bill. We do not have the correct paperwork up here. We've got just a copy of what has been given to us, and so what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the chairman. We're going to listen to you people to come up and make your statements, and then we're going to table it until we can get all the correct paperwork up here, and we have everything, verbiage, everything in front of us like what it's supposed to be. So I understand that there are several people that have to get up and leave and go to other meetings. So members of the committee, if you feel like that you've got to go on to your meetings. I understand there's several other meetings that are going on, that are going to be going on. We're going to go ahead and get started with this. That way we haven't taken so much time and not heard what we need to hear. So Chairman Dempsey, if you'll go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chairman Benton, and I do apologize for the confusion. I think Chairman Benton has moved. I've had 3 different assistants in my office, so somewhere along the way something happened, and I'm not sure what, but we'll get to the bottom of it. You do have the language, though, in front of you, and just to draw your attention to the printed bill that was in front of you when you sat down, it is only in Section B, starting with lines 20 through 24, that there is sort of a reworking of that language to clarify it. So when we do get the final document to look at, that is what we'll be dealing with, basically there. But to start off, thank you so much, and I appreciate the revisit to HB 290, the Family Care Act. More often than we realize, people's jobs are at risk when they need to care for a family member. Nationwide, 23% of workers have lost a job or been threatened with job loss for taking time for care for a personal or family illness. Losing a job, even a day's pay for taking care of a loved one, undermines workers' ability to spend on the basics and keep the economy going. Business in our communities depend on workers having money to spend. The Family Care Act will help keep working people in their jobs, helping to reduce unemployment. Employment turnover is costly, particularly to small businesses. The cost of retraining new employees is a drain on businesses, not only in dollars, but also in productivity. The Family Care Act strengthens economic security for working people and their families without requiring employers to provide any additional sick days. Workers would only be able to use earned sick leave and no more than a maximum of 5 days. The Family Care Act is good for families. Every family wants the best for their children, but without family care days, parents are forced to choose between their family's financial stability and their children's health. Parents with family care days are less likely to send a sick child to school, reducing the spread of illness in the classroom. Providing access to family care days is a responsible way to limit the spread of illness and protect our vulnerable children and the elderly. Parents without family care days are 5 times more likely to take their child to the emergency room because they're not able to leave work during that normal working hours and schedule that doctor's visit. Georgians across the political spectrum support the Family Care Act. The bill has bipartisan support in signatures and in our legislature. Similar measures have been passed in 8 states as lawmakers and business owners recognize that these modest policies strengthen the economy. This bill allows for transparency and trust. That is basically what it is all about. It's creating an opportunity between employer and employee to tell the truth, not to be on the phone and cough or act like you don't have a voice, when what you really need to do that day is take your child to the pediatrician during the hours that that doctor is open, or when you have an elderly family member who might need you. Very briefly, you cannot not use any sick leave if the company does not have a policy. It does not mandate that anyone establish a policy, but if you do have one, that employee may use those same days to take care of an immediate family member. The definitions are in the bill that you have there. If you look to beginning with line 13, it defines employee, employer, immediate family member to mean only child, spouse, or parent. It defines sick time not to include paid short-term or long-term disability, catastrophic leave, or similar types of benefits. When you get to line 20, this is specifically where the wording is just slightly different from the other piece that you have there on your desk. So I'm going to read it to you just to make sure. Nothing in this code section shall be construed to require an employer to offer sick leave of any kind. However, an employer that provides 5 days or less of sick leave shall allow an employee to use such sick leave for the care of an immediate family member. An employer that provides 5 days or more shall allow an employee to use at least 5 days of such sick leave for the care of an immediate family member. You must earn that sick leave just like you would if we were not establishing this family-friendly, good policy. This bill will save Georgia money and will strengthen public health. And more than anything, I think it is a business-friendly measure that helps employees and employers be honest with one another. I believe there's some other speakers that may have signed up. Mr. Chairman.
Hold on. Does anyone have a question for Chairman Dempsey? Number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good day, ma'am. I have a question about the definition for immediate family member,
Right.
listed as an employee's child, spouse, or parent. But I'm fully aware that there are blended families and families that would not fall under that definition who could also benefit from this law. So, for instance, my nephews live with me. I'm not their legal guardian, but they have lived with me over the years. Would this bill apply to me being able to access this particular right to leave and go take care of them as well?
Not in a legalistic manner. It would not, the way that I read it, and I could be wrong. We can certainly check on that for interpretation before we come back and revisit it again. What I think this bill will really do, though, is to begin that conversation. We must start somewhere, and this mirrors federal legislation.
Yes. And I'm not sure if this would be a question of you, Mr. Chair, or our legal counsel, but is there a legal definition of dependent? Don't know. Okay. And then one final question. Would you be amenable to adding
We discussed
dependent?
this last year. It opens a lot. I'm not opposed to it. We've worked very hard for a long time. I know Representative Bruce worked very hard on a very similar measure.
Right, and he and I have discussed it,
Right.
yeah.
So, I'm certainly open to whatever we can do to make it work.
I feel like I could support the bill if it was open to families that don't necessarily fit what's listed here as the definitions of immediate family. Thank you.
Number 11.
Okay, you have for 5 days. It's only for 5 days that they will have the right to use sick leave. It's only up to 5 days.
That was the agreement that was reached in this measure. Right.
Okay.
Any other questions of the chair lady? All right, we have several people that have signed up to speak. We're going to ask you to limit your comments to 4 minutes. I think everybody can pretty much sum it up in 4 minutes each person. We're going to call on David Pilgrim first.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for giving us the opportunity to testify today. My name is David Pilgrim. I'm the Associate State Director of AARP, Georgia. I come today on behalf of Barry Reed, our state president, who just happened to go to a doctor's appointment with a family member. So I'm in his stead. So in saying that, we come today on behalf of our 1 million members in the state of Georgia in support of House Bill 290, the Family Care Act. We believe this bill would allow workers to use the sick days they have earned to take care of ill children, spouse, or parent. As our population ages, increasing numbers of seniors will need to rely on employed caregivers, adult children, spouses, or other family members to accompany them to medical appointments and provide them care when they're ill. Family and work patterns have changed dramatically, yet workplace policies have not kept pace. No one should lose a day's pay because they need to take care of a sick family member. It's bad for families, it's bad for kids, it's even bad for business and our economy. When families lose, we all lose. The Family Care Act is an important step in making sure working parents and adult children have the flexibility they need to do the right by their job and their family. The lack of flexible workplace policies endangers the health of our elderly and puts unnecessary strain on working families. Nearly half of all workers believe they will be responsible for elder care in the next 5 years. This is simple and common sense policy. The bill does not require any expansion of benefits provided under a sick leave policy of an employer. When employers can use their accrued sick day to care for elderly relatives, that family members is more likely to stay healthier, be cared for at home, and avoid added costs to family members, taxpayers, emergency room visits, or nursing home stays. I thank you for your attention toward this bill and ask you to support it.
Anyone have any question for Mr. Pilgrim? Anyone on the committee? All right. Thank you, sir. Vicki Johnson. Okay.
Chairman Benton and committee members, I thank you for your support for seniors and for this opportunity to speak today in support of HB 290. I am Vicki Johnson, and I am here on behalf of the Georgia Council on Aging and COAGE, the grassroots coalition of advocates for Georgia's elderly, where members chose the Family Care Act as one of their legislative priorities for 2014. The Family Care Act would allow caregivers of aging family members to have the flexibility to take their family members to a doctor appointment without concern for their job. It allows them to support their family members to age in place in their homes and communities. All of this comes at less expense to the state than costly institutional care and without an expansion of current benefits by an employer. We ask for your favorable consideration.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Johnson? Thank you, ma'am. Dawn Alford.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak today. My name is Dawn Alford, and I am here today on behalf of the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, where I serve on staff as a planning and policy development specialist. The mission of the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities is to bring about social and policy change that promote opportunities for persons with developmental disabilities and their families to live, learn, work, play, and worship in Georgia communities. We have a small staff that carry out our everyday work and are governed by a 27-member board appointed by the governor and comprised of at least 60% individuals with developmental disabilities and family members. Our focus is on developmental disabilities, but we collaborate with our friends and allies in the broader disability community. I am here today to speak to you about why the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities supports House Bill 290, the Family Care Act. Many of our stakeholders are working Georgians who serve as primary caregivers for their family members with a disability. When that family member with a disability becomes ill, individuals often have to choose between caring for their sick family or going to work to keep the very job they depend on to support their family. If families are forced to take unpaid days when a family member becomes ill, then they risk losing wages or even putting their livelihood at risk if they lose their job. Losing wages can be a burden for any family, but this is especially true of families with an individual who have a disability. There are often many out-of-pocket costs as a result of the disability that are not covered by insurance. Furthermore, no one can care for a family member with a disability better than their own family. So we respectfully request that you support House Bill 290 to give all Georgia families, including those with disabilities, the flexibility to use their sick days to care for their family members, to reduce lost wages, or even more devastatingly, the loss of jobs. I would just like to mention that today, I'm here today with my family member, my mom, who had to take off from her job. Now granted, if I had been sick, my paid caregiver, who currently has influenza, wasn't able to come in. So if I had been sick and needed to go to the doctor today, my mom would have needed to take off to go with me to the doctor. Thank you so much for hearing my comments, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have at this time.
Any members of the committee have a question for Ms. Alf? Thank you, ma'am. Linda Pogue.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Linda Pogue, and I'm here. I work at Disability Link, which is a small non-profit that serves metropolitan Atlanta. We have less than 20 members of staff. And we institute a family care policy because we know that, from experience, we know that employees, even the very best employees, are not good employees when they're worried about something else that's going on. It's much better for people to take a few hours or a day off and deal with the issue than to try to balance it at the same time as working. We just know that's the truth. The second thing that I wanted to say is that as a small employer, we are always very keen to keep our good employees. And one of the things that employees tell us is the kind of benefit that family care is, allows people to take the time when they need it, and that is very much appreciated by our employees. And the last thing I wanted to share is that, in fact, people don't use that family care leave very much in our experience. People talk about it when they are expressing their appreciation for the benefit, but when it comes down to it, people actually see it more as an insurance as opposed to their first line of defense if something is wrong with their family members. So it is used, but not used widely, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Any member of the committee have a question for Ms. Pogue? Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Chairman Dempsey, would you like to come back up and just kind of summarize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do apologize again for the hiccup today. It looks like we have figured it out, though, and I think we'll have it in place with your generous offer to come back and revisit this one more time. You know, we've talked about this so many times. The main thing I think to remember is that it does not require you to have a policy. If you have a policy, it offers that opportunity to really be supported, particularly in the challenging economic time that we have. It's not a new benefit, but it will add flexibility. It certainly helps children. It helps people with disabilities, victims of domestic violence abuse. It helps parents. It helps the employer and the employee. My mother was very ill for a while, and I cannot imagine how it would have been if I had to choose any time, even one day, whether I would go help take care of her or whether I would not be able to have a job. I cannot even imagine how hard that is, but I've heard from many people who feel that they are in that situation when it was mentioned just a little bit ago, I believe Ms. Pogue said about the not really using it. The average days used by workers are 3.9 for sick leave, and for another family member, it's 1.3. So I think, as we heard, it's not used a lot, but it is certainly a good family-friendly, business-friendly measure for us to consider. So I hope you will do that. While we wait to get a hold of that bill and for the next meeting, I'm open to discussion with any of you on any of the concerns you have and see if we can possibly work them out. This has been a measure that has been requested and talked about for many, many years, even before I was here. And I think for us to begin to do that, it would be so very important. So I ask for your consideration when we get that opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Representative Bell.
Thank you so much. I just want to address the community as well as Madam Chair. I really want to support this bill. I believe in it wholeheartedly. What concerns me are the people who are left out of this, who don't fall under this particular definition of immediate family. And I think about my 19-year-old nephew who has lived with me since he was 3. He had nephrotic syndrome as a child. We spent 3 weeks out of every month living at Eggleston so that he could be taken care of. Luckily, I worked for Eggleston, so it was only a matter of me going upstairs to the hospital to spend time with him. But I'm concerned because I'm not his legal guardian, and for other families that are like that, that this particular bill would not apply to me. I also think about my partner of 25 years who legally is not my spouse in Georgia, but should she need someone to come and take care of her, I mean, she's looking at knee replacement right now. I broke my foot this summer. My mom had to come down and take care of me. So I'm really concerned about who's being left out of the conversation. So I would like to take some time, and I know that this has been a bill that Representative Bruce has tried to work over the years, but I would like for us to just push a little bit further and think about who are we leaving out of that particular definition. And I'm apt to say I'm going to support it, but I really want us to push just a little bit harder so that families like mine can also be protected under this law. Thank you.
Thank you, and I value your comments. You know, as I think as we all know, in all measures, it's really hard to address everything, but let's talk about it.
I was going to suggest that maybe y'all can get together and look and see if there's something that y'all might can agree to on that the committee can agree to as well. So, and we'll maybe put that in the form of an amendment when we come back in, if that's what you want to do. At this time, Chair recognizes Representative Kirby.
Mr. Chairman, I move we table HB 290.
Have a motion that we table until the next meeting. Do I have a second? Have a second. I have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any other discussion about the bill or the motion to table?
And I apologize, I'm going to be in the minority here, but I do believe that when employers treat their employees well, it makes for a happier and more productive workplace. It seems like a good company policy. That being said, and I'm sure it's not what many individuals in this room want to hear, but forcing these kinds of mandates on employers is not the proper role of government. Employers already have the ability to allow employees to use sick leave for any purpose, and employees have the ability to negotiate for better contracts and policies directly with their employers. The countless affected businesses are unrepresented here today, and many unintended consequences are being completely ignored. For example, in order to compensate for a possible loss in productivity that may result, an employer may very well have to resort to paying lower wages to all employees, or the ability of one employer to make itself more competitive in the hiring market by offering better employee benefits and policies such as this than the company down the street. Employee-employer arrangements should not be defined in statutory law. These agreements are rightfully the domain of contract law and should be based on voluntary mutual consent between both employee and employer. The bottom line is that this is a clear violation of the individual's right to contract and of natural law.
Thank you very much for your comments there. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, if you would, say aye. Any opposed? Bill 290 has been tabled. Representative Dempsey, what we will do is when we get all the correct paper, and for you people out there in the audience, I really want to apologize to y'all for we need to have the correct paperwork to vote on the legislation, and so therefore somewhere along the line it did not get to my office. So if we can find a time to schedule sometime during the rest of the week, we will do so. We will give you at least 1 day's notice that the meeting is going to take place. If not, our regular scheduled meeting time is Monday at 1:30. So if you have not heard from us in the next day or so, then the meeting will take place on Monday. So with that being said, this meeting is adjourned.